Nigerian diaspora community for the interest you have continued to show in development back at home, and particularly your commitment to peace and to rapid development of Nigeria. Particularly impressed with the global trips you have made to meet with the Nigerian community to sensitize them, also get their views about happenings in Nigeria, and where they think government can help them. I believe that the Commonwealth is, like the director said, it's a great heritage, a global heritage of the former British Empire. And although our nations are now completely independent, we have decided to keep this association to share experiences, to share opportunities, and therefore the Commonwealth has different platforms, including the platform of the heads of governments of the Commonwealth. We also have the Youth Championship, the Commonwealth Games, and in fact we have Commonwealth scholarships where young people share opportunity to school in different countries of Commonwealth heritage. And this has brought together, on the global platform, a number of nations as diverse and well spread as New Zealand, Australia, India, Nigeria, in Africa, there's South Africa, Ghana, and several other countries in the Caribbean. They're also part of the Commonwealth, Canada, and so on. So I think that if you put together the fact that the English language remains the strongest commercial language, global language, language of diplomacy, language of commerce, language of science and technology, and so on, I believe that we have a lot to share, and we can contribute to each other's development. And I think that is what the Commonwealth is today. What can we do for each other, and what can we do with each other to promote happiness, to promote development, to promote human solidarity, and so on. And the Commonwealth also played a very crucial role in decolonizing the last settler colonialism in Africa, which is the defeat of apartheid. Remember then the various struggles that were waged for the complete decolonization of settler colonialism in our continent. Today we can happily say that there is no part of Africa that is still under racial segregation. With the independence of Namibia and then subsequently South Africa, we can say that we can all now march together and face the issues of development. Now, Nigeria presents quite a number of pictures to people who are outside the country, and I've always had a responsibility to continue to explain. First of all, our country is a big country. We're the 7th most populous nation in the world. I think 167 million people. And so on that score, you can imagine the market size of the country called Nigeria. And 2/3 of that population is under 36 years. And I think that is really the big thing about Nigeria. It's a young population, it's a big country, it's a large country. 84 million hectares of arable land, which presents a huge opportunity for agriculture. And we are also a multicultural, multi-ethnic, and multi-religious nation. The diversities sometimes present their own challenges, but every Nigerian admits that we are strong exactly because of these diversities. This very week, that's just passed, we had the Abuja Carnival, for example, because we are talking about culture, the movie industry, entertainment, promoting unity in a diverse country like Nigeria. And in this year, for example, the Abuja Carnival attracted participation of more than 12 countries of the world, spread across from China, India to Brazil, the Caribbean, South Africa, Egypt, and several other countries. The carnival in Abuja is becoming a very huge international carnival. Why? Because Nigeria harbors the largest concentration of pristine African cultures that are undiluted by anything that you have seen, maybe in Southern Africa and other parts of Northern Africa. So Nigeria is still largely a cultural ecology that has evolved over millions of years, and today offers the world really an opportunity to sell his culture, which is a potential for job creation, for attracting foreign direct investment, generating jobs, and so on. We are just beginning to develop that now. Calabar has been on this for long. Lagos caught on last year with the first Lagos street carnival, and it was amazing, you know, what we saw. Nigeria is not at war, and I think that point must be made. Nigeria is not at war at all. There is nobody that is discussing the division of Nigeria. There is no, we have 36 states and the FCT Abuja. There is no federating unit in Nigeria that is asking for Nigeria to break up or excusing itself from the common heritage of the Nigerian Federation. So it's not threat to our nation. There is no threat to its unity. There's no debate, really, about the future of Nigeria. We have a challenge to peace, which comes largely from an extremist religious, I will not say religious group, because I can't define Boko Haram as Islamic, because we do know that virtually all Islamic societies in Nigeria, including the Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs, which is the highest umbrella of Islam, you know, Islamic practitioners in Nigeria, has denounced Boko Haram. Yeah. There is no single established orthodox Islamic religious organization or body in Nigeria that has not condemned Boko Haram. So it's an extremist group that is highly isolated and that is using the same strategy that the IRA used in England for years of the Northern Ireland crisis, to bomb, to, you know, attack and run, and some form of urban guerrilla warfare, which is not very easy to detect and defeat, but which has been largely contained. Otherwise, the situation would have been more critical than what you see now. So let's not take what is going on in Nigeria to mean that maybe our country is about to break up. This is the kind of story that we keep hearing sometimes, particularly out here. It is not true that Nigeria is about to break up. It is not true that our unity is threatened. It is not true that the future of our country is in doubt. We have challenges, but we know that those challenges present the same picture that you see in Pakistan, where you have an extremist group attacking a largely Muslim state. So you don't really have the Muslim Christian to have a religious challenge. In Northern Ireland, you had a problem between the Catholics and the Protestants, and they're all Christians. If such factors can really blow up in any plural society, and they do not necessarily threaten that society, but what they present is a challenge, a social challenge that has to be contained. And I want to tell you confidently that the Nigerian state, the Nigerian government, the Nigerian people are battling this extremist group, which is not operating all over the country. It's operating in a few states in northern Nigeria. You know, the north is made up of 19 states. The majority of those states are not at war. They are not being attacked by Boko Haram. Even in the northwest of Nigeria, if you go to states like Jigawa, like KB, like Sokoto, like Katsina, you do not have the attacks of Boko Haram in those states. And they are all in the northwest. You know, even in the northeast, relatively you can say that Gombe, Taraba, which are states in the northeast, have not come under any serious threat by Boko Haram. There are occasional incidents in Bauchi, but the main hotbed of Boko Haram has been Borno and Yobe. And of course there was a major attack in Kano, but the people of Kano rose in unison. If you go to Kano today, those who are battling Boko Haram are not even the military, not the police. They are common citizens who feel insulted because Kano is a huge commercial city and they don't want their commercial feature, their tradition, which has been there for the past 400-500 years, because Kano has been the headquarters of commerce in the Western Sudan long before the British set their feet in Lagos in 1861 through the bankrupt invasion of Lagos. So I can tell you very clearly that even within the north, Boko Haram is largely isolated, and I have seen broad majority of Nigerians say, look, we need to defeat this extremism, which is a challenge, but it's not a challenge that threatens the unity of Nigeria. So I think that Nigerians in diaspora and other foreigners should see this as such. I give you an example. If Nigerian unity was threatened by Boko Haram, Nigeria would not today be be the first investment destination in Africa. Today, we are the largest, we receive the largest inflow of foreign direct investment into Africa, even above South Africa and Egypt. So every year continuously for the past 5 years, this has been the case. Whereas investors in Europe often a bit more nervous, but the Chinese are moving into Nigeria. They are not. The Indians are moving into Nigeria. The Brazilians are moving into Nigeria. They are not asking questions. Where the rest of the world see bombs, they see opportunities, because they know that even within northern Nigeria, the areas of isolated attacks are really, really small in terms of spread. And the whole south of Nigeria, there's no threat of Boko Haram. The economy of Lagos is booming. You hear that on CNN, you hear that on international financial times, on other organs of communication. So the south is booming. Parts of the north are also growing. And so what we require is an understanding of what is happening at home, so that when you speak out, when you say things concerning the country, you know that that is not the case. Even Iraq, with all the challenges it's had, with all the bombing that still take place in Baghdad, its unity is not threatened. Neither is Pakistan, has been on this path for more than 10 years now. So I think, let me therefore isolate this problem. It's an extremist. We have had that in the past. We had the Metatine challenge in the 1980s, which Nigeria overcame. We are now having Boko Haram. We'll overcome it. And why do we have Boko Haram? It's really an interplay of 9/11, the ideology of Al-Qaeda, led by late Osama bin Laden, and then the way the international media also played it to the rest of the world. And that's always the problem I have, and I've continued to say this. Most of us there didn't know anything about Al-Qaeda, but the Western media, unfortunately, has been able to sell it. You remember, Osama and his agents never had any difficulty advertising their ideology. All they need was to cough, and there will be headlines on CNN, on BBC, on all the Western media, you know, every day. Even when they threatened this, anything they say was news. And there are, in places like Africa and Nigeria with huge populations of youth and so on, some just began to look at them as international icons, you know, models to be copied. So we have those challenges, but I believe that our country will overcome Boko Haram. We are battling it, we are fighting it through military deployment, through public enlightenment, through community mobilization to confront the danger that it represents. And in virtually all parts of the north today, every state is doing something to help. Because you know that when there is crisis in your community, you will miss on the development that is going on generally in the country. Number two, Nigeria just came out of decades of military dictatorship. You know, we were there for almost 3-4 decades under military rule, where there was no constitutional rule, where there were no rights as established by the constitution, where the economy was controlled by a prebendal dictatorial state that was not democratic, and where reforms were bottled up. You could not go to Nigeria for those years that ended in 1999 and establish a company to generate electricity. It was forbidden by law. We established a company to do communication, mobile telecom. It was forbidden by law. You know, you could not establish a private radio station in Nigeria or a television station. It was forbidden by law. So we had a kind of pseudo-socialist state run by a rogue military clique that denied us development. So between 1999 and now, Nigeria has transited. A lot of changes have taken place. Consistently now, we are in the third elected regime since 1999. There are a set of governors that have left, there are done terms and left, and this is the first time in Nigeria that people are being elected and voted out of power on, you know, a sustainable basis. It never used to be the case. So we have a very vibrant political environment that is very young, sometimes very combative, because the actors are not yet schooled, you know, in the tradition, practice, and values of democracy. And part of the bad press we get here is because the polity is still young. I don't know how America was 12 years after 1776. I believe it was not easy, you know, for any country as young as our democracy. And sometimes we easily make comparisons with England, comparison with America. Yes, we would like to be compared to them. But don't forget, even though we have been independent for 60 years, We are only 13 years on a consistent democratic path. We've never exercised any. The First Republic was terminated after 6 years. The Second Republic after 4 years in 1983. This is the first time we are running a democratic system for 13 years. So it's a young country in terms of the capacity of the politicians or political parties who are not yet fully rooted with a democratic culture. And that is why today you find that there are politicians in Nigeria that will quickly run to London, run to Chatham House, run to BBC, just to run down because maybe they lost the last election. But when you saw what happened in the US recently, after a very bitter and highly contested presidential election, Romney just picked the telephone and said, look, I congratulate Obama, and I'm ready to work with you for the greater glory of America. Since 1999, we have not had that experience where a defeated presidential candidate will pick up the telephone and congratulate his opponent. We still have that attitude that if I lose, then something must be wrong with the election. There's no way you do an election and all parties to an election will win. It's not possible. So, meanwhile, while this goes on, Nigeria is undertaking a very comprehensive economic and political reforms. But these are the things that Nigerians abroad should listen to, take advantage of, and be part of developments at home. The comprehensive economic reforms that were undertaken cut across all the sectors. Whereas before 1999, as I told you before, the law had forbidden the private sector from engaging in several sectors of the economy. Now, every of those locked out sectors or locked in sectors is being opened up for the private sector. From telecoms, in 1999, nobody had a private mobile phone. Not even in the year 2000, nobody had a private mobile phone in Nigeria. Now we have the largest number of mobile phones in the country, close to 100 million mobile phones in 10 years. That is revolutionary. Just imagine the millions of people that have gotten jobs as a result of this reform that sold Nitel and allowed private companies from around the world to invest in our communications industry. Now that we are moving to the next stage of broadband development, because it's been more of voice communication. We need to move the sector. We need to develop broadband to have adequate bandwidth for mass communication and movement of data between and among institutions. And that's exactly what is going on now. The new minister has rolled up a new plan to attract investment into that sector. Now, one of the critical sectors in the nation that has always hampered economic development is power. As I speak to you, before the end of December, we would have virtually concluded the privatization process of both electricity generation and distribution in Nigeria. This is the most comprehensive power sector reform that any nation in Africa has been able to do in recent decades. Nigeria is finishing it. Why do we do so? There is no way. In Nigeria, everything about power, every electric pole, every meter, every plant belongs to government. It doesn't work out because we are not doing things in a commercial economic way that will allow an industry to generate. We have a big market. There's no reason why we should not open up this sector. Now it has been done. In the meantime, we are building 10 new power plants. In the conference I've just left now, in London here, the Vice President announced that 3 of the 10 power plants have been completed and are now feeding the national grid. The other 7 plants are 90% completion ratio right now. So in other words, in the next 2-3 years, the power sector in Nigeria will undertake a radical change. And we have one of the largest gas reserves in the world. And so what we are doing now is to move into thermal stations, use the gas to power industry, to power electricity plants and industry directly. And from the report by Shell and other companies and the PIP bill is before the National Assembly now, I can tell you that between now and the next 5 years, for example, those reforms will take root, electricity will get stabilized far more than it is now. Even now there is significant improvement. We don't talk too much about it because we think we should go further first and see how sustainable it will be. We are changing the entire transmission infrastructure in addition to the new power plant that the government is building. There are also private people that are now building power plants because the regulation has enabled the setting up of a bulk purchaser. We have the electricity regulating company. We now have a bulk purchaser that will buy up power from private plants, feed on the national grid, and pay you back your money. So that way, people are contributing. You don't have to wait on government to get electricity. So the reforms in that sector going on are very, very comprehensive. In agriculture, for example, we just had a report that was given by the Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Akinwumi, who himself has been on all international institutions relating to agriculture. And I can tell you that right now, what we see on ground is that agriculture is also going through the same comprehensive changes that we have had in terms of telecoms as well as the power sector. So before government will buy tractors, bring fertilizers and give people and think we have done agriculture. And no fundamental reforms. Now there is a comprehensive value chain reform in agriculture. And the minister has taken off government from fertilizer supplies and inputs that have been completely commercialized, and government is giving credit guarantees to private sector people at subsidized rate to supply farmers, which is very consistent like you see in every country in the world. What the challenge we have now is to create a financial backup to the agricultural reform, which will enable farmers get credits not from commercial banks. In no serious agri country do people take money from commercial banks to do agriculture. That's the challenge we're doing now. As a stopgap measure, what the president has done is to ask that the Nigerian Agricultural Development Bank be supported with additional funds, so that it can supply farmers. But between the Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Finance, and the Central Bank, they are working right now on a sustainable program of credit provision for the agricultural sector. But even now, changes have taken place. Between now and 2015, Nigeria will be virtually self-sufficient in rice production. We have started processing cassava. We're the largest producer of cassava. We will never produce one tube of cassava in Nigeria. Now we are brought in the private sector, and that is being done. And right now, our own cassava bread, which people thought was impossible, that we must eat wheat bread. Now we are testing cassava bread. The president eats it, we eat it, and it's great bread. Now it's virtually getting ready for commercialization and export to the other West African countries. So a lot of developments are going on. The housing sector, we have just approved a policy mechanism to reform housing, and also trying to build a mortgage finance industry in Nigeria to propel the mortgage sector of the economy, which is an income and job creator for the economy. And for a huge country like Nigeria with a lot of housing deficit, even there alone investment in real estate in Nigeria is quite an opportunity for the Nigerians in the diaspora, all over, to take advantage of the opportunities. Like I keep saying, what people see as obstacles or gaps and challenges in Nigeria, Chinese are seen as an opportunity. They are rushing into railways, they are rushing into shipping, they are rushing into the power sector, and all over. You've seen Chinese move into the Nigerian economy in a significant way. Oil and gas, everywhere. They are coming in, the Indians and so on. And I think that let Nigerians who are out here be more attuned towards investing in these opportunities that are opening back at home. The Chinese in the diaspora played very significant roles in the Chinese reform from 1978 to now. When those reforms were launched in 1978, we were high school, we were in high school and we saw it. But between then and now, look at the advance that China has made. Nigeria has the demographic combination, natural resource, demographic combination, and the intellectual wherewithal to propel the development of that country on a very fast rate. At the moment, we are growing about 7.1%, the highest GDP growth in the continent. The challenge we have is to ensure that this growth is all-inclusive and generates jobs and improve living standards. That's the challenge we are having. But that is going to come up. So, in other words, what am I saying? At the level of the economy, our nation has not witnessed the kind of comprehensive changes that are taking place in Nigeria now at any other point in the past. And the story for Nigerians abroad is that, and our friends, in the Commonwealth, is that as Europe ages out, because its economy is virtually reached, I wouldn't say diminishing return, the saturation point. You know, so we are having a lot of crises also here now, and the US as well. And also as China becomes a competitor, an exporter of capital, the same thing with India. Japan had joined that long ago, and South Korea. Now, as these nations now look for opportunities to export capital and technology, and Brazil joins Canada and the United States in the Americas, the next destination for investment in this world must be Africa, because the only virgin land left is the only place where you have, you know, virgin opportunities, you know, for anyone that really wants to make serious impact and grow their capital in the next decades. And as this motion goes to Africa, Nigeria is uniquely placed because we have greater capacity in terms of the market size to attract this inflow of capital. And that is why the need for good story to defeat these extremists, you know, so that the bad story, no matter, I'm a minister of information, I know how difficult it is. Bad stories make more news naturally to human beings than good stories. Because what is good is taken for granted. And so what is bad is what strikes your imagination immediately. And for this reason, in spite of the good things I'm telling you about Nigeria now, even Nigerians in this hall will say, no, it's not. So, why? Because all the stories you hear is that some group have bombed a church, or some mosque have been touched, you know, and so on. And those are the kind of stories that are propelled in the international, even the domestic media. I'm a journalist and I know that we have greater hunger for negatives than positives as journalists. I don't know why. I'm here to find adequate explanation, but maybe it's in the imagination of human beings. But I can tell you clearly that you have a great story developing in Nigeria, and from all the international movement of capital, as I've described to you, Africa is the next destination. And everybody is going. People are eyeing Nigeria. People are eyeing. I'm just from the investment conference, and that's the story there. People want to go to Africa. And when you say, what do you want to go in Africa? You won't leave a market of nearly 200 million and go and invest in a place that is 3 million. You want to go to the center of gravity. The pool that China and India are having on the global market today is their domestic capacity to absorb fresh investment and opportunities, you know, and multiply income for those who want to invest. And Nigeria has that capacity. We also have a fairly strong intellectual base with large number of universities and schools, and we also have, maybe we come to England now, I can tell you that maybe for India and probably China, if you talk of students schooling in England from outside England, you are likely going to have Nigeria on the first, second or third position. And it's like that in the US, it's like that in most countries, because Nigerians have a hunger for scholarship, for education. And there is nowhere that you go in the diaspora where you do not have Nigerians at the cutting edge of knowledge in one field or the other. So what is needed therefore, to come to your discussion, is to create a sustainable platform, systemic institutional relationship between the Nigerian government, Nigerians at home, and the Nigerian diaspora. We can't do it on this ad hoc basis. I was in England here shortly before the Olympics, and I spoke with the Nigerian students here in England. I also came earlier on, immediately after the downstream sector reforms in January in Nigeria, with all the crisis of opposition, to come and address the Nigerian community. And Alistair Ben TV was part of the co-organizers of that year. And I discussed with Nigerians here. What we need is not just these ad hoc relationships. You know, what the president has done is to get an advisor on diaspora to establish a systematic platform of relationship. The diaspora community is spread out, you know, with different organizations, which is as it should be. It's not always possible to bring all these people together on one platform. But no matter the number of platforms, we can agree on a common denominator and how we are going to relate to one another. And what I see you doing for us is in the area of investment, in the area of talent. I know there are Nigerians out here that have quite opportunities to network investment. It doesn't have to come from your pocket. If you have the knowledge and the know-how, you can network capital, you know, from Europe, from Asia, from anywhere which is cheaper than in our banks today, and invest in the ongoing reforms and take your own front seats in the management of the new Nigerian economy and society. This is very, very important. At the political level, we are cleaning up the electoral system. You will see that the president promised not to continue with the tradition of bad election, because dealing with corruption, dealing with bad perception, sometimes you need deep reforms in the system. And the reforms we are doing in the economy must be matched by political reforms so that elections to be cleaner and guys will have to work to be re-elected. But wherever people can buy votes and smuggle their way, whether they have capacity or not, then you will not have transparency and accountability. Now, from 2011 to now, I can tell you that the elections in Nigeria have become cleaner in all the by-elections we had recently in Ondo, in Edo State, in Kebbi State, in Adama, and several other states. Hardly do you have people in court now, because the elections are clean and clear. You win or you lose, and the president has made it very clear. If you lose, you lose. I'm not going to use my position to bend electoral rules. So what he has done is to detach INEC, give them independence, give them strong leadership in Professor Jega, who himself was for a long time the president of the academic staff of universities with a lot of credibility. So we are completely cleaning up the electoral system. And the reforms are also dealing with issues of corruption. In fertilizer distribution, virtually nobody is bringing any contract to any ministry now for fertilizers. You want to import fertilizer, just go bring in your fertilizer or produce it, take credit from government. So the question of the sleaze that used to be the case in fact is gone, you know, and that is going on in all the places as we reform the economy and allow the market to take the lead. Because when you have government bureaucratic control, it is where really abuses take place. So as the economy is getting reformed, corruption also definitely is facing a lot of clampdown. You had recently of issues related to oil subsidy abuses. You remember that when we were campaigning, when the president decided to deregulate the downstream sector, there was a lot of misunderstanding. And it was partly an opportunity to deal with abuses and unleash the industry to the market for development. And so recently, some of those abuses, so people are being tried in courts. You know, the problem with the democracy is that you take somebody to court today, it doesn't mean that you convict him tomorrow. There are processes for this to get on, and we are following on each of the cases in court and the fresh cases that have been investigated, and I assure you that they will be punished because when the list of those taken to the FCC for prosecution came out, people were shocked that some of them belong to some of the most privileged families within the ruling party. But the president took everybody there, go sort out yourself before the law. That is the starting point. So I will like to say that I'm really happy with the interest that you have continued to show, particularly the diaspora community here. The support you continue to give to families through transfer of income, you know, back to the economy is quite significant, you know, put together. But what we need really now is a partnership that will place you in diaspora in a very, very strong position to drive the process of selling the opportunities that Nigeria has at home for investment, and also to take part in this drive. Like I said in the last meeting with the students here, the gaps we have in infrastructure, the gaps we have in power supply, the gaps we have, you know, in all other areas of the economy are actually now opportunities for investment given the economic reforms. And that is why everybody wants to come to Nigeria now to invest. And in this process, whereas we cannot legislate that only Nigerians will take part in it, it will be our desire that our nationals, you know, spread across the world, also take the opportunity to participate in these reforms by building partnerships with investment networks or getting credit to, you know, take part in some of the opportunities that are coming up at home, so that we will not depend on your long practical experiences in Europe, America, Asia, wherever you are, so that we can bring some of that talent, you know, back home to manage our economy, and also come and participate in the politics. It's very, very important. I keep telling people, often, you know, it's easy to stay out here and begin to sanctimoniously condemn some of the part of it because it's important. You know, we for us to get out of some of the challenges we face, we need courageous guys, men and women that are prepared to come in and be of strong support. The system is clean up, gender is no longer, today the gender issue is being confronted, and the president has opened opportunities. Almost all the key sectors of the economy, oil and gas, banking and finance, education, being run by women. Very smart, well-trained people who are really played a significant role in propelling the new Nigerian reforms. So let me thank you very sincerely for this invitation, and I thought maybe I should give you a little of this background so that we should know where our new priorities should be, and conclude by saying that Nigeria is a confident nation, it's a strong nation, it's the largest concentration of Africans anywhere in the world. We know our responsibility to history and posterity for that continent. We will do everything to continue to unite the country and undertake the reforms that will indeed eliminate some of the distractions that you see now, some of which really are reactions to poverty and bad economic management of the past. So as we move forward, you are going to see a more confident country, and as we move from election to election, people will begin to see the kind of opportunity and strength that Nigeria could offer. Even now, we remain the bastion of stability in West Africa. We dealt with the issue in Liberia, in Sierra Leone. We are leading the movement now to bring peace back to Mali. In Chad, we played a strong role. In South Sudan, we played a strong role. In Southern Africa, Angola, Mozambique, Namibia, and South Africa, we played a pivot role that brought those countries to peace and end of settler colonialism. And therefore, the situation at home should not distract you. We are heading in the direction of change and transformation. And that change will not come without some distractions and challenges in the process. But those challenges and opportunities, they shouldn't discourage us. I thank you so much for that.
If you all agree with me that there's no way I will have been able to give that account, detailed account of what the federal government of Nigeria has been doing. Honorable Minister, I would like to really appreciate you for coming and for this detailed presentation. While we are inside, we have a special guest in our midst that just walking. His Excellency, Dr. Chris Nonis, is the Sri Lanka High Commission to United Kingdom. He's my mentor, he's my friend. We've been together to about 7 countries. He hosted me in Sri Lanka 2008 and 2009 during the Commonwealth Ministers meeting. And I hosted him in Nigeria too in 2008 in Abuja. He supported a lot of Commonwealth initiatives in Nigeria. I would like to call him to give his good message. Your Excellency, you are welcome, sir. The Sri Lanka High Commissioner of United
Say a few words here today. I've been Deputy Chair of the Royal Commonwealth Society for a few years, but I now serve as the High Commissioner for Sri Lanka to the UK. I've had the great privilege of meeting your President, Goodluck Jonathan, back in the Commonwealth Business Forum in Perth, parallel to the Commonwealth as a Government meeting. I've also, of course, met on several occasions Blackson Bayumi, who's been, I must say, one of the greatest proponents and ambassadors for Commonwealth youth and for Nigeria that I have certainly met in my time. And I must say, several things, what you said, Minister, actually struck a great chord with me. You spoke so eloquently about your country, but so many of those things are absolutely parallel. Our little country in Sri Lanka, we certainly don't have, of course, the economies of scale that you have. You have tremendous. I remember when Blackson first introduced me to your youth minister, and I asked your youth minister when he came out for the Commonwealth Youth Ministers meeting to Sri Lanka many years ago, how large his constituency was. And when he told me how large the youth of Nigeria, the population was several times larger than our entire population, I was tremendously impressed. And when I had the good fortune to go to Lagos and Abuja, and get involved with some of those Commonwealth Youth initiatives, I was really struck by the enthusiasm, the dynamism of the youth of Nigeria today, because certainly they're our future. I always say that I always tell people I'm actually past my sell-by date. I think I need to be returned back to the supermarket. But actually the youth, the Commonwealth youth, are really the future, not only of the Commonwealth, but of all our countries. Because I think it is at that age that the mind is most open to inquiry and debate. It is at that age that the mind can unleash the creativity and has the freedom to actually exercise that creativity. And you are blessed in that in Nigeria you have such a huge population of youth and such a huge percentage, because that is your intellectual capital for the future. And I was really struck by their thirst for success and their keenness and enthusiasm. And certainly I've known that anyway, because during my time here, I spent about 28 years here in England. I studied here in medicine and subsequently practiced as a doctor. And during that time, you're quite right, there are so many Nigerians who are actually studying here and doing so well. I've had many friends, whether Yoruba or Igbo or Hausa, and all from all the different parts of Nigeria. So I had to learn Nigerian culture and the Nigerian cuisine, as well as the Nigerian dancing. And so I've realized the tremendous capacity that you have as a country within the African subcontinent to really make a difference, not only for the subcontinent, but actually for the Commonwealth as a whole. And I think that's where our greatest remit is. Certainly if you look at our little country, Sri Lanka, we've only got a population of 20 million. And we've had, of course, we've been living as a heterogeneous society for 2,500 years. But the difficulty we had was that we had 28 years of bitter conflict with the terrorism. And finally, in May 2009, we achieved peace in our country. We're free of the autocracy and hegemony of terrorism, and now we're firmly embarked on a comprehensive reconciliation process, reconstruction process, and rehabilitation process. We've got over $1 billion program in the north and in the east, in the previously conflict-affected areas, and we've embarked on a very, very comprehensive reconciliation program in the country. Because if you look at the Sri Lankan economy today, our GDP growth is above 6%. It's been actually above 8% quarter on quarter, and the last quarter it's just above 6%. But what is interesting, if you look at the previous conflict-affected areas, for example, Jaffna, the growth is over 22%. And that's what I think is very wonderful, this disparity in growth, which demonstrates how much good is happening in the previously conflict-affected areas of the north and east. Because to us, we are aiming to build a pluralistic and inclusive society to ensure that everyone reaps the dividends of peace. As I've always said, all of us, Tamil, Sinhalese, Muslim, Burgher, Malay, all ethnicities and all religions, all getting together as one Sri Lanka to rebuild the country, to build a pluralistic and inclusive society. But as you quite rightly say, the backbone of our economies in developing countries have to be driven by knowledge-driven economy, by knowledge. And I think Sri Lanka, like Nigeria, we have a wonderful biodiversity of very rich flora and fauna. So there's tremendous potential there for technologies like molecular biology, which is now taking off. We've also recently set up a nanotechnology institute to try and harness the value of small molecules and small particles. And also IT, not only export-led growth for the software industry, but also trying to ensure that in addition, we also develop proprietary software within the country. And that's also for the youth and the rural youth to become empowered. Because at the end of the day, our President Mahinda Rajapaksa, in his policy, the Mahinda Chintana, is keen, the Mahinda Chintana outlines pro-world growth and growth with equity, so peace and of economic growth. And that is something I think that we have across all Commonwealth countries. As you know, we will be hosting the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting next year in Sri Lanka. And parallel to that, we will just back here, that we had, I think there were over a delegation of over 120 from Nigeria, in fact, in the business. And that depends, as I've always said, not only on the indigenous people of Sri Lanka, but as you quite rightly say with the Nigerian diaspora, our process also depends very much on our diaspora throughout the different countries. And I invite everyone always to get together, come to Sri Lanka, see how much you can invest in the country, and also how much we can do with parallel countries. As you know, Sri Lanka is currently having a really increasing its trade links and political links with many of the countries in Africa. For asking me to speak, and also it's wonderful, I think, that we're all working as we speak here within the Royal Commonwealth Society, that all of us within Commonwealth nations get together, unite, see how we can help each other, so that everyone can together reap the dividends of economic growth. I thank you.
We need to take some questions, but just very few questions for the minister. But before we do that, society will be retiring in January. In December, we'll be going to South Africa to pick up another director of Iraq on his way to South Africa. He's coming back to Africa. He's coming to Africa now. So, we'll talk to the director. Also, to the Honorable Minister, it's from the Royal Common Society, just fresh about the Majesty's Diamond Jubilee. So I would like to call on Director Mr. Chris. Drop you come. Join me in presenting to the Honorable Minister as a souvenir. This is not an award, just a presentation of the Honorable Minister. So this is Her Majesty's Diamond Jubilee presented by the Royal Common Society. I would like to present to them, so for coming to the headquarters of the Royal Common Society. This is the oldest civil society in the Commonwealth. It's over 60 years, and Her Majesty the Queen is the patron of this society. So you are welcome, sir. Thank you. So I'm informed that Honorable
I didn't take notes, but I will remember the things that have been asked. First of all, the first question, the person that asked the first questions was discussing variously about reforms in the railway, about telecoms, and I think also said something about aviation, about Ghana crash and why were they allowed to fly, and so on and so forth. First, let me say this. I don't know how very, very current you are on some of the issues that you raised, but let me say that in the case of Ghana air crash, which was very sad, very unfortunate, the Minister of Aviation followed the standard rules of the International Civil Aviation Organization. Yes, if you have a plane crash, often there are issues, there are investigations, and then based on international best practices, you take actions, not just domestically, but also in association cooperation with the International Civil Aviation Organization. In the case of Ghana, they went through those processes of investigation, finding out why the crash took place, and following all the information gathered, processed, and decisions made by the Nigerian Civil Aviation Organization, as well as the international agencies in charge of aviation globally, it was thought that Ghana should have its license back to fly in Nigeria. So I believe that the decision followed best practices, and after an investigation, after every crash, there's a lot of emotion associated with global. It's not only a Nigerian issue, but definitely we will not therefore completely stop a company that has investments in your country beyond that single incident to close up. It affects a lot of other things, including the confidence of other actors in the system. If every air mishap will lead to the closure of the entire company with all the fleet of craft they have, with the people that they have employed, and other things they have put in your country, then definitely nobody will want to invest in that sector. So I believe that it's unfortunate what happened, very sad, very unfortunate. Nobody anywhere in the world is not affected when there is a crash, particularly the fact that in countries like ours, most of those traveling by air are some of the best trained crop of people. And so we really regret, and it continues to evoke a lot of emotions in our country. But definitely it would have been very difficult to just close down the whole airline because there are other legal issues and opportunities that they offer the country. So, say what?
Insurance and litigations,
Well, those are issues that are continuing. But to say that the airline should not fly at all in Nigeria again in spite of all the investment would be a very difficult decision to make. I think that that is it. A lot of other issues are continuing, including compensation issues and so between the families of those that unfortunately made the untimely death and the airline. But definitely it's a hard decision to close down the entire company because it will affect a lot of other developments. You talked of telecoms. Well, like I made a point here that before 2001, when the reforms took place in Nigeria, we didn't have private telecom companies in Nigeria. You had Nitel with 450 analog lines, 450,000 analog lines that were not working. I mean, as a reporter in Kano in the 80s and 90s, it would be 1-2 hours to get my story 5 from Kano to Lagos because you stay maybe 30 minutes. If you are lucky, you have the dialing tune, and then after 2-3 minutes, it's gone. You start afresh all over again. But now, if you look at what has happened in Nigeria, it's really very revolutionary. And like I said, the next challenge we have is to invest in broadband development. And we just floated a fund for the development of broadband, and the Minister of Communication Technology is about advertising for investors and companies that want to participate in most advanced democracies of the West. Now, the third question, yes, about entertainment, whether it is simply a gimmick or whether the government is really intending to support the movie, the motion picture industry in Nigeria. Now, first of all, we have on ground about 4 policy reforms that are before the Federal Executive Council to debate about setting up the institutions to back up Nollywood. And part of the memos before Council include the establishment of a fund and also the establishment of a professional guild. Because if you look at the Nollywood as it is, the professionals are virtually very scattered. There are so many guilds, and so they are not maximizing the impact of the synergy that they should bring on board in terms of propelling their trade and getting support domestically and internationally. So we are developing that. The President announced the establishment of a $200 million fund in the Bank of Industry. That money is still there, but it's difficult for a filmmaker to go and take money from a commercial bank, and it's not very easy because sometimes the collateral for payback might not be there. So what we are trying to do is to take part of that money and establish a fund that will then be managed professionally by the guild, and it will enable such as a cooperative that will enable even small filmmakers to have access to some capital which they can pay back in a kind of revolving fund. It will create more access to the industry as it is today, while the big-time players can go higher up and have access to capital at other levels. So all those are still on board. It's not a gimmick, the money is there, and the reform processes are on. We are proud of the achievement in the Nollywood industry. We're now the 3rd largest, I think, after India and Hollywood. And even now, if you go to Africa, the impact that the Nigerian film industry has had on the entire continent, on the imagination of Africans around the world is unimaginable. And we want to play on that and work hard at it, use it to sell the good story of Nigeria, and also use it to build peace like you have just presented in a very beautiful presentation concerning what the entertainment industry can do to create synergy, unity, and solidarity among Nigerians. And they have been doing quite a very great job. Very talented actors, very talented young people, creating job opportunities for Nigerians. So we will not relent in our effort not only to reform, but also create the enabling environment and the capital base for the industry to grow. let me thank you very sincerely for your questions, and I hope I have answered.